Welcome to Come and See, your podcast for finding truth in a world of chaos. Brought to you by Living Waters Abide Ministries. With host and founder, Richard Case, and co-host and retreat leader, Kathy Ricconi. Jesus reminds us to watch for the signs of his return. Today, we will explore further what we are seeing in our times that line up with what signs he said would indicate the potential of the end and his return. We will also discuss the practical meaning of this as we watch and as a remnant prepare as he so leads. And now your host, Richard Case.
Good morning, everybody. This is End Times Friday, and we have, again, very special guest, Denny Weinberg, who's been facilitating our discussion with Israel. And then we have two of his friends from Israel, Eric Sirkin, who is just well-known and well-read and knows what's going on, tells us the truth. And then Rabbi, who is from Israel. And hey, by the way, did you do that bike ride?
I did, and thank you very much for the donation. It was great.
How far did you get?
Well, we did, it was 4 days of biking in the desert near the Dead Sea.
Wow.
50 to 70 kilometers, 30, 40 miles a day. Spectacular scenery, great people, all to support a children's rehab hospital in Jerusalem.
Yeah.
Good for you. That's excellent.
Do people come out and watch you go by?
Well, most of it's in the rugged, hidden mountains of the desert, the Judean desert, between Jerusalem and the Dead Sea. But on the last day, we ride up through the hills of Jerusalem and then into the city. And then, then big crowds come out to greet us as we make our final way to the hospital and visit the kids themselves.
Oh, that's beautiful.
What a great experience and such a service.
What's your link if people would like to donate? What's the link?
Oh, let me get back to you on that one.
Okay. Well, that's
okay. Good. Thank you for offering. That's kind.
Yeah. So you got to go in the mountains. So you're going uphill?
Yes. It's, when you mountain bike, there's uphills and downhills. When you're in the desert, there's tons and tons of downhills and uphills. But because of the nature of being on a bicycle, you spend about 90% of your time going up and 10% going down, because it just goes a lot faster. So you have to learn to love the uphills also.
Man, how do you get in shape for that? I mean, that's not easy to do.
Well, it's my favorite hobby. So almost every Friday I go out into the hills around Jerusalem and bike in the forests around the city.
Oh, beautiful. Yeah, I'm a road race guy, but I like going flat. slide uphill with a paved road.
Or the battery.
Yeah,
I was going to say, I'm an e-bike gal, so I just use my turbo boost when I need to go up a really tough one.
Yeah. Well, we're happy to have you both on again. And, our first question is, since the last time you gave, by the way, a great explanation of what was going to happen with the attack on Iran. And by the way, Eric, everything you said happened. So that was pretty cool. So they've had that attack. What's been the outcome of that? How's it going with Hezbollah? And then what's the status of the government? And one big question we have is we know that Netanyahu fired his defense minister, so we need to have you explain that a little bit. So, just go ahead and start and kind of bring us an update, and we'll pursue with more questions.
Well, I guess starting with Iran, basically Iran structured its entire forces to be offensive. That is, they've trained the IRGC, the Iranian Revolutionary Guard, not for defending their country, but for attacking other countries. And as a consequence, their defensive systems are minimal. They purchased years ago a surface-to-air missile system from Russia, that's built in Russia, called the S-300s. And I think that the S-400s, which is the next generation, has been around for over 10 years. So these systems are more than 15 or 20 years old. And the Israeli Air Force is trained against both them and the S-400s. And Russia can't sell them S-400 systems because, lo and behold, they have their own internal needs to prevent Ukrainian fighter jets that were given to them by the United States and France, I guess, preventing them from attacking Russia. So Israel, the first time in April, it knocked out one of those batteries. And in the most recent strike in October, they decimated the rest of them, along with a lot of their arms production facilities across the country. And lo and behold, a nuclear facility. Israel was told by the Biden administration that thou shalt not touch the nuclear facilities. But there was one that Iran didn't bother to tell the UN or the inspectors that existed. So Israel took it out, and Iran couldn't say anything because they couldn't admit that they were hiding something from the UN.
Wow.
So they took it out. It wasn't a uranium enrichment facility. It was a research facility that was designated for manufacturing and building the triggers that would ignite the nuclear fission or fission explosion. So basically, at this point, to the best of our knowledge, Iran is completely 100% totally defenseless from any attack from the air. And what does that mean? My guess is that the Israeli Air Force and much of the population here just wishes Iran to do something so we have a pretext for retaliation. Because if they have zero defense systems, it's not only our fighter jets that can go into their airspace, it's everything else. All the drones, we could send in drones, rockets, anything and everything we have in our aerial arsenal into Iran to do whatever damage we so choose. But they have not retaliated. Lots of rumors as to why, but no one really knows. Maybe they will still, but so far they haven't. There's a lot of bluster in Iran, and I think Israel's proven quite well that it's mostly a paper tiger, and they talk a lot more than they actually have the abilities to do. There's a saying in the Middle East that Iran likes to fight to the death of every Arab. So, your listeners may not understand, but Iranians, are the most part, they're not Arab. They're not ethnically Arab. They're not genetically Arab. They're a totally different race. And so all of their proxies, however, are Arab Muslims, some Sunni, some Shia. And so their method of fighting in the world is not to sacrifice their own people, but to let other people sacrifice their own. For example, the Houthis, Hamas, Hezbollah, and there are several in Iraq and in Syria, but none of them are Iranians. So that's regarding Iran. And right now, nothing seems to be happening. Quite honestly, I mean, one would guess that in part they're afraid what happens when Donald Trump assumes office. It's my guess, but I don't know for a fact. In terms of, I'll go to Gaza next. In Gaza, Israel was getting a lot of criticism for many, many months from a lot of the U.S. military, senior military officials and other military officials around the world. In my opinion, I'm not a military expert. It's mostly because these people were ignorant. But they were criticizing Israel for the fact that, oh, look, you can't get rid of Hamas because you fight them here and they just pop up someplace else. Israelis were totally prepared that this is not going to be a war where you just win in a few months and go away. This is going to be an ongoing, probably several year war at different levels. And we're entering a different phase now. So after Israel took Rafah, and despite the Biden administration's criticism of it for doing so, not a single civilian was killed in that exercise. And that's, by the way, where they found Sinwar and killed him, was in Rafah. And if you remember, both President Biden and Vice President Harris, we know our geography. There's no way Israel can go into Rafah without killing lots of civilians. That was what we were told. So unfortunately, a lot of the advice we were getting from the U.S. military wasn't so great. Nonetheless, we're allies, and we have to listen to our allies, and we did so. So at this point, there were several areas of Gaza that when the IDF entered it, it sort of bypassed on the first entry. And there's two neighborhoods, one called Deir al-Balah in central Gaza, and another one called Nuseirat. And both of them haven't really been entered directly by IDF forces. To remind your listeners, in Nuseirat, if you remember, there was a rescue mission where 4 live hostages were rescued by a really incredible operation by special forces. That was in the town of Nuseirat. I spoke with soldiers coming back from Gaza, and they tell me that a lot of the Hamas people in Nuseirat are just sitting by a swimming pool, smoking a hookah, that's a water pipe, and relaxing because they know Israel's not going to enter those areas because that's where they keep the hostages. So Israel went into a northern part of Gaza back that had skipped the first time, an area called Jabalia, which is a neighborhood of Gaza City and 2 other nearby. And it's been fighting there now for about 3.5 weeks. And from the best we can tell here, we're not experts, but it appears as if Israel, the IDF, has basically eliminated almost the last organized battalion of Hamas. A lot of the fighters regrouped in this area, and Israel surrounded it, the IDF, and went in about 3.5 weeks ago. They estimate that they captured over 1,000 terrorists, and they're incarcerated now. And there are almost an equal number, if not more, that were killed in battle. Who knows how many were wounded. So there's still some cleanup operations going there because the hardliners are not surrendering because they know they'll spend the rest of their lives incarcerated in a prison. And so they're basically fighting to the death. And they booby-trapped a lot of the buildings there, so it's been hard for the IDF to go in. And there have been several casualties, I would say, in the average of 3 or 4 a week, resulting from the fighting there. But we're fighting now a guerrilla war, and a suburban guerrilla war. And I don't know, we're probably a couple of weeks from ending that phase. And that would only leave the 2 last neighborhoods that there's a lot of hesitancy to go into because this is where the hostages are being held. And Hamas has shown that if they sense that the IDF is anywhere close by, they will shoot the prisoners point blank and kill them. And we don't want that. So I don't know what strategy the IDF has up its sleeve to try to deal with that, whether there's a military operation they think they can do to circumvent that, or whether they're just going to simply say, you guys have to, the government, you have to negotiate a ceasefire deal now. Hamas is pretty much obliterated, so let's get our hostages back and move on. So I don't know what will be chosen. There are a lot of differing opinions in Israel, a lot of demonstrations of the 2 different camps of thought. One is at this point, let's just give them their ceasefire, not attack for, everyone here knows that Hamas will regather at some point and attack again. The question is that a year from now, 5 years from now, 6 years from now? No one knows, because these wars just never go away. And so those who say, let's get our hostages back, say, well, there'll be opportunities to go back in again in the future. And there are others who oppose that opinion, saying, no, now is the time to finish them off. And so those are the 2 different opinions being expressed on the streets of Israel at the moment.
By the way, how many hostages do they feel are?
They feel like about 2/3 are still alive, which would mean around 60 or so, 65. The IDF believes that most of the others have died, some naturally, some not.
So basically now it's just a matter of what's the strategy to recover them, and attacking. Sounds like attacking is a strategy that actually isn't going to work, at least for recovery of the hostages.
Well, I've learned in life, you never say never. I don't know. We have a very, very capable army that does some incredible things, and who knows what they're capable of. My guess is they pretty much know where the hostages are at this point.
Eric, I remember when we first started talking, you brought up this idea that most of the people in Israel and the Israeli government believed they could have done this months earlier had the United States not, told you to hold back. And I wonder if there's some residual anger, over that issue, because Israelis have been lost and injured, and you end up in the same place, but much quicker than it.
Yeah,
not to be wrong.
Look, the United States is a sovereign country. It has a right, and we're clearly an ally, but we're also highly dependent upon the arms. We manufacture a lot of our own arms, and as a percentage that's going up as a consequence of this war, because we're trying to reduce our dependencies wherever and whenever we can. Nonetheless, the United States is an ally, a good ally, and when they tell us things, the Army listens. And I'm not sure anger would be the right emotion. I would say disappointment. I think that we're scratching our heads here, saying, "What the hell happened in Iraq? What the hell happened in Afghanistan? If this is the way you guys fight a war, you shouldn't." So either the military, that is the Pentagon, was taking orders from the White House and therefore telling us not what made military sense, but what made sense for the Biden re-election campaign, or there's really a serious problem in the U.S. military that needs to get addressed, because the advice that we got was absolutely terrible in almost every instance about how to enter, not to enter Gaza, how to go into Gaza, how not to go into Rafah, how not to go here, how not to go there. I would say the one piece of advice that's been solid has been the issue relating to aid. And it's a big issue inside Israel, because there's a part of the country that says, we're at war. Why should we be providing aid to our enemy? And then another part says, look, there are civilians there. We can't just let them starve to death. So we have to take, our forces are now the occupying force, if you will, inside Gaza. So we have a responsibility. So I don't know which is right or wrong, but that's just the situation. But either the military has been politicized in the United States because of the situation, or someone's got to clean house, because the information and the advice was pretty bad.
I think somebody is going to clean house.
On to Lebanon. So around 4 weeks ago or 5 weeks ago, Israeli ground forces started entering the Lebanese border area. We actually had people on the ground since October 8th inside Lebanon. These are highly elite reconnaissance units that have been spotting everything going on. Very limited in operations, very limited force, but that's part of the reason why we had such great intelligence regarding Iran as we did. But now we have, total divisions. Probably my guess is around 3,000 or 4,000 infantry inside Lebanon at this point. This is Miles Rosenblum.
Hi, Miles.
Hi, Miles.
He was just gotten off base. He was up in Lebanon for how long? A month?
A little over a month, yeah.
Yeah, a little month. He's in a unit called division called Sankanim battalion. That's Hebrew for the parachutists, paratroopers. Yeah. And he also was in Gaza for like 3 weeks or more,
like 2.5 months.
He told me that
Wow.
He'll never forget. He spent Erev Rosh Hashanah. You'll like this, Ephraim. Ephraim's a friend of mine, Rabbi in Jerusalem.
Nice to meet you.
He spent Erev Rosh Hashanah in a Hezbollah tunnel, underneath a Hezbollah tunnel in Lebanon.
Yeah. So for the Jewish New Year, my team and I were tasked, like 7 kids, including myself, were tasked with essentially blocking one side of this 600-meter tunnel. So we transported thousands of sandbags into the end. And then, Israel's incredible. They brought in a cement truck and used like a liquid, but like quick drying cement to completely fill the tunnel. What's even crazier is I went back into Lebanon after this, and I don't know if you saw in the news, maybe in northern Israel a few weeks ago, probably close to a month now, there's such a large explosion it triggered the earthquake sensors. My team and I, with the help of a lot of Hebrew words, the combat engineers and special forces and a lot of other people, we blew up using 362 tons of explosives, a mile-long tunnel with 16 communal bathrooms. I was inside, my team and I went in before to see what was there after it had been cleared, and 16 communal bathrooms, weapons rooms, rooms for commanders, surveillance rooms. It's all of the money that Hezbollah is receiving and stealing, and what they're getting from Iran, what they're getting from civilians, it's going to terror. This was a head base for special forces of them. It was disgusting, crazy.
So how did you celebrate Rosh Hashanah?
Actually, it's pretty beautiful. Obviously, no one in war is going to have their phone on them. It's very limited.
Before the soldiers go on operations, the Army confiscates their mobile phones.
So it was nice. It was me and 6 other kids on my team, and we were paired with actually a religious unit, which is not like a common thing, but it's also not unheard of. So with this religious team, we realized, this is like really our opportunity to make the most of it. So we said a few brachot, a few prayers. We said the Shechechianu because none of us had been in a terror tunnel before on Rosh Hashanah. It was really like an amazing experience. Truthfully, people don't tell you this, but when you're in war, you're appreciating small things a lot more. So I'd spent all of my fighting experience in Gaza in the summer, full gear, heat that you can't imagine. So when we went up to Lebanon, and there's no electricity, the stars are shining completely through and bright. It was really a beautiful, beautiful night. My friends and I still talk about it.
That's beautiful. Well, we're at the end of our first session, and we want to catch up.
I don't want to steal Rick from you.
No, okay.
No, you stay because we want to talk more about your experience and particularly it's exciting that you could share about your celebration of the New Year. Would you say that your cohorts, a rabbi has talked to us about the country really does celebrate this. A lot of them, some religious, maybe not super religious. How would you characterize your team? Is it religious? Is it not religious? But typically, what do you experience there?
The beautiful thing about 99% of teams in the Israeli army is you're going to have people across the board. So unless you're in a specific religious unit where you're drafting to be with people who are on the same level, high level of religion as you are, I'm in a normal paratrooper unit. The 101st Airborne is like the equivalent. We're also 101. Besides the point, my team completely ranges. We have Jews who are not identifying with the religion, more so in the culture. But then we also have completely religious Jews who are going to be practicing Shabbat, practicing kosher, praying 3 times a day. And the beauty of it is that the army really has 2 big rules, and that's people follow them. If this was America, it'd be different. One of the rules, sure. don't talk politics. I swear to you, I have best friends, people who I literally would die for, they would die for me. I could not tell you their political views. You can obviously talk religion. It's a huge part of this country, but there's no stress about it. So I have incredible friends who are extremely religious, and I have friends who don't believe in God at all. And what's amazing is that we all know we have one common goal, and that's protecting the state of Israel.
Wow, beautiful. Well, thank you.
Really?
Thank you all for sharing this. We're going to continue in part 2, and then we'll come back, and we'd like to have Rabbi comment on that. But, thank you guys so much. And audience, just stay tuned. Please come into part 2 because we got more tremendous information to receive. So we look forward to that.
Yeah, thank you so much for joining us. Look forward to next time. If you have questions, listeners, be sure to send them in to us at questions@abideministries.com, and we'll see you next time.
Yep, we'll see you then.
Thank you for joining us for today's episode of Come and See, your podcast for truth in a world of chaos. Brought to you by Living Waters Abide Ministries. Send us your questions and comments, and tune in tomorrow for more answers to your personal questions about living life in God's truth. Remember, God's will is best and none better. His truth brings peace in this world of chaos.